this is it.
Wow.
Isn't this amazing? Now, Lee Felsenstein took a look at it and declared it to be authentic, an authentic set of chips, at least. So here we have the 8008.
Wow, what are those?
Those are 1702 EPROMs.
I'm trying to remember, half K byte?
They're like, they're
70 from that year. They might have been less than that.
1972. And they contain a disk operating system called DOS, and we just dumped a piece of it. We managed to read these, and we disassembled them to the 8008 code.
Wow.
Now this thing here, through all these boards, some of them engineered by Tektronix. Now 1972, there's a 72 Tektronix board, ran, you won't believe this, a Diablo Memorex hard drive on casters. All these boards were plugged into a card cage with this front panel connected to a Tektronix color raster display, and it ran a serial interface which could go up to 9600 baud to the mainframe, the cyber mainframe.
Well, that's pretty much like standard computer technology with a microprocessor.
Yeah, and then ASR33 in and out. But they wrote the code on the mainframe in IBM 370 assembler, took it down, and they had an emulator for BAL, basic assembly language for IBM, that would run the BAL programs natively on the 8008. And they also had a BASIC for this thing. And it was all done at Cal State Sacramento in 72, 73, and they ran 50,000 patient medical records on the thing. And then IBM came out with the MCS8 kit, and that was one of their first kits, right here. And then this was lost to history. And this fellow Bill Pence called me 2 years ago and said,
Intel came out.
Yeah, Intel came out with this kit, but largely based on this experience of this project. And Bill Pence, the director of the project at Cal State Sacramento, called me up about 3 years ago and said, I know you hear this a lot, but I think our group created the first microprocessor-based complete computer. I said, yeah, a lot of people say that. And then he said, well, let me describe it. And then they found the hardware and brought it down. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is it. So I took it down to the Asilomar microprocessing workshop. Remember the Asilomar conference? And Lee and a whole bunch of people, Stan Mazer, looked at it.
Yeah, I remember when we started Apple, we went into Intel, and they had machines. They had their own computers inside, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could have been very similar.
But this is the first front panel on a microcomputer, on a microprocessor-based machine. Look at that. Well, this switch is broken here. But it's the same idea as the Altair later, 2-3 years later. Next step, put in the instructions and step through it.
Yeah, well, even my cream soda computer, step it in, push it into memory, next instruction.
Right.
Click it into memory, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't have a microprocessor.
Yeah. And this thing was buggy. It had unpredictable timing problems.
Wow, is that an 8008?
That's an 8008 right there.
Wow, it's a small package.
Isn't it a small
I never saw one.
Yeah, because the 4000.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's the 8008 right there, and it's all rubbed off. I mean, these guys were putting it in and out of this socket so much they probably rubbed off the label. Now here's the kicker. So when the 8080 was being designed, this team helped Intel get it right. So that's why the 8080 was so good when it came to the Homebrew Club, because people like this had debugged it. So they said, well, we need to fix all these things. But then what they said to Intel, and this is in 73, they said, take our free DOS, our drivers, take it all, take all the code, put it out on a cassette tape, give it away with the 8080. And Intel said, we don't understand software, or we don't know what to do with this thing. So they didn't. Can you imagine if you bought an 8080, you got a DOS, and drivers and free code, and a basic implementation and a 370 assembler implementation for every 8080 sold.
If you still have to pay for enough RAM, though.
Right. These were expensive. I mean, this is expensive. That was expensive. But it would have loaded on cassette tape.
If these are RAMs, I would think they're like 256-bit ones back then.
Yeah.
Maybe twice.
But Intel would have given away the code on cassette. You could, or you put it out on paper tape or something. But you're right. I mean, it would have been a lot.
And then the cost of static RAMs.
Right. These are individually labeled with taped on labels.
Yeah, if you wind up, you can run a program, but it costs
and look at
$50,000 today's dollars. It just isn't worth it.
Look at this bus. Isn't this amazing?
No, that's amazing. That's great. Wow, that's incredible. It's like they really had some sharp team
Yeah, no, it was university
to
guys.
do all that. I mean,
Yeah, and
God.
here's all their notes.
how
all
were they
their
funded,
code.
I wonder?
Well, Intel donated the chips. Tektronix donated their time to engineer a lot of these boards because they felt sorry for the university, because it's like, you guys are struggling. Look at this. Look at this thing here. This is a diagnostics board to tell you which of the boards are working or not. So they needed this to figure out how this complex system wasn't functioning. What was,
I could have never done that.
yeah.
Too much.
Too
Too much for me.
But
I would've-
so it was all volunteer. It was all donated time, donated engineering.
Yeah, if I had to get up to building a diagnostic board to plug in to test the other parts of it,
Yeah, can you imagine?
I was kind of like figure out a way to do it with no tools.
right.
Just a scope.
Just the scope. Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of fact, this was just they didn't have what logic analyzer. They didn't
Right.
have logic analyzers then.
They didn't. That's why they had to build this board, actually,
Oh.
partly. So
Well, I never used a logic analyzer either. I wouldn't
You
even go
didn't
that
use the
far.
scope
No,
directly?
never once in my life. We had them at HP, and I would use the scope directly, and I'd look at a bunch of signals and write down some ones and zeros. Look at another pin, write those down, and sort of figure out where it had gone.
where'd it go?
Yeah, I was just super low end.
So anyway, this is the newest discovery of the Digibarn project.
Yeah.
And now that we've dumped the code out of here, it's online.
Are you gonna put the history out somewhere?
It is. There's a whole site been built, interviews, you name
Did
it.
you get a hold of any of the original guys?
One of the guys just died, unfortunately.
Bill Pence?
Bill Pence is alive, but one of the other guys passed away. But Bill's around, and now this code is online. We put it up on the site, the 8008 code.
Isn't that fantastic that it lasts that long?
Isn't it amazing?
Nowadays,
Yeah. We see the
nowadays with modern technology, it wouldn't last.
you see the tape, the gaffer tape I put over that. That's so the light
Oh, yeah,
doesn't erase the. But there's one. This chip here has one pin that is either bent or not functional, so one bit is off. But otherwise, we got everything out of here. Amazing, because code doesn't.
So
survive.
what'd you do? Figure out what the other bit was?
Yeah, in fact, the guys are guessing what the instructions
Yeah.
would be. Yeah, for that bank of the code.
Wow.
Wow, huh? Totally wild. You know, when you dig deep, digital archaeology, you find more and more interesting stuff. That more stuff was going on than even the people remembered.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a great machine
Yeah.
for that
hard,
time. Yeah.
hard drive,
Jesus.
color display. There were partitions on the hard drives used by the mainframe and partition used by this machine. And this card cage, you can see the front panel there. And they would plot the graphics. They were plotting graphics of medical stuff on this Tektronix scope. 72, early 73, but weird.
In that case, you could actually question whether the 8008 was the right choice.
And it wasn't,
For
but
the
it was
part.
the first. It was the first available.
Because if you're going to build that big a computer, well,
Yeah, well,
you didn't save much money with just the microprocessor.
right. This was not cheap.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm seeing is that the whole setup, well,
These
just
cost-
having a regular mini computer.
These were hundreds of dollars each. That's what they were in 72. Those
Yeah, I
those
know.
proms.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I used two proms that were the total added up to 256 bytes for the Apple One. That was
Oh, okay.
they were affordable, but
It's better to have an ASR 33.
they were like $5 each. What's that? $20 today.
Have an ASR 33 and just paper tape it in,
Well, then you still need to build a card that connects to it,
And you need the bootloader.
and then that thing costs the ASR 33 costs as much as a car
Yeah.
back then. that was the what prohibited me. I always knew ASR 33 is what you have to have when you have your own computer, but that was too expensive.
Is that
Unless you knew how to get one free,
Yeah.
which a lot of people did.
Bruce, do you have some kind of a
Yeah, we had him in our ham radio club.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's really-
yeah. Some people who
They
had
wanna
worked
cover
around
the-
stuff would have one.
the,
Boy, that
Apple
was the
II
key.
in there.
Input output
Yeah.
so
was
when he
more
comes in,
expensive
you
than the
can-
computer.
You can uncover
Yeah.
it.
The
look
tape,
at it.
the tape
Oh,
system was really
okay.
cool.
Yep.